else about anything. So anyway, I posted this as the topic, and then I was updating some info, and I saw the chat, and Muslims were in there saying that we're wrong about Aisha. That Aisha had reached puberty. We're all wrong. So, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to focus on some examples, and we'll probably carry this on till tomorrow because there's so much to cover here with Muslims deifying Muhammad. But we want to get to that. But very quickly, I told the Muslim, I said, look, I don't want to refute you here in the chat where 10 people are going to see it, because that's, it's probably 10 or 15 people in the chat at that time. I said, I don't want to refute you here. I'd rather refute you live when there are a bunch of people watching. So let's go ahead and take a look at those comments. It's on Muhammad and Aisha yet again. All right. So he was claiming that Aisha had reached puberty. So let me get Halim's comment off here. So Mo said, and I don't know if he's here in the chat, but I told him we'd be live.
Hopefully he is.
Mo said, according to the definition of a child, it is someone who hasn't reached puberty. Aisha did. So he was saying that Aisha wasn't a child because once you've reached puberty, you're no longer a child. And Aisha had reached puberty and therefore was not a child. Now, I went ahead and posted a comment. I said, wow, Mo is claiming that Aisha had reached puberty. Apparently, he's never read the Quran or Hadith. Get the facts here, everyone. And so I go through Surah 65, verse 4, and the Muslim commentaries on it, and how even in collections like Bukhari, they tie this command in Surah 65, verse 4, which says you can marry, have sex with, and divorce girls all before they've reached the age of puberty. So I put that's in the video. And that, and you've got the hadiths which talk about Muhammad having sex with a prepubescent girl. All right, so that's in the video. Now, Mo responded. First he responded, well, if you read the hadiths carefully, then you'll see that Aisha had reached puberty according to the hadiths. This is the example he gave. Now, Sam, have you ever heard this before? No. Narrated Aisha. I had seen my parents following Islam since I attained the age of reason, i.e. puberty. Not a day passed, but the Prophet visited us, both in the mornings and evenings. And notice, everyone, notice the little 25 in brackets. Notice the 25 there in brackets. Why is Mo got a 25 in brackets after this quotation? Well, all you have to do is cut and paste this to find out where he's getting it from. He forgot to edit that out. So he's not actually getting this from looking it up in Bukhari or anything else. He cut and pasted this from the Yaqeen Institute's website, right? And if you go there, and they've got this, and they've got in brackets 25 there because they've got a footnote after this. And so he's simply cutting and pasting claims from the Yaqeen Institute website. Now, here's the thing, Sam. When a Muslim in the chat, in the comments, tells me, oh, Aisha had reached puberty, here's a hadith that shows it, I do not assume that this Muslim is trying to deceive people, because this is what they hear from their apologists, and they think that they're getting reliable information from their apologists. So they think that this is saying that Aisha had reached puberty before she was taken to Muhammad's house to consummate the marriage. But the Yaqeen Institute, they know better. They know what this hadith actually says. They know the Arabic. They know that this has nothing to do with Aisha reaching puberty. They know it. They know it. They know it. They are deliberately mistranslating this passage, misrepresenting this
100%.
passage in order to deceive people like Mo, so that Mo goes out and then he defends Aisha. And what they're hoping is that Mo will be able to deceive a bunch of people. He'll do the footwork for them, and that he won't run into people like us who will actually break down the passage and expose the Yaqeen Institute for deliberately misrepresenting and distorting this passage. Now, Sam, this passage from Bukhari here.
Yes.
If you go to the available editions of Bukhari, they don't put puberty in brackets here like they do here.
That's what I was really taken aback by what you just cited.
They just say since I had attained the age of puberty, right? The Yaqeen Institute knows that it doesn't say anything about puberty there, so they put puberty in brackets, and they say the age of reason, and they're saying that the age of reason is puberty. So they're trying to fix the mess that's created by a mistranslation. But there are going to be some problems here. What is this actually saying? Is this saying Aisha had reached puberty?
No. Now, thank the Lord Jesus Christ that God has blessed us with the internet, with all these resources free of charge. If you go to answeringislamblog.wordpress.com, answeringislamblog.wordpress.com, I actually wrote a response to this. It's called Muhammad's Marriage to a Pre-Pubescent Minor. So do a search, Muhammad's Marriage, minor, this is going to pop up. Now, again, I don't know why Muhammad Muslim Khan translated this particular hadith or the Arabic wording, since I attained the age of puberty, because just read the context. It's not talking about puberty. It's talking about Aisha reaching the age of cognition, meaning she now becomes aware of her circumstances and environment. She's aware. And we all know this, right? Up until a certain age, we can't recall. Do you recall when your mother changed your diaper? No, you don't. But there's a certain age, maybe 5 or 6 or 7. Now you have awareness, you have cognition. So the Arabic does not say, I attained the age of puberty. In fact, here, you don't need to read Arabic to confirm what I'm about to say. It's in the article, but you can find an alternate translation of Bukhari done by a convert to Islam, Aisha Bewley. It's the Sahih collection of Al-Bukhari. It's online for free. I recommend you find it, download it, because I don't know how long she's going to have it up there. Same narration, same hadith. I'm going to read her translation, so you see what it's saying here. Here it is. In her translation, it's number 464, different numbering. It is related that Aisha, the wife of the Prophet, said, I have no recollection of my parents doing anything but following the deen of Islam. That's all it says. The hadith is saying that as far back as she can remember, she recalls that her parents were Muslim. That's all it's saying. And you don't need to be pubescent to remember, right? I mean, think about it. You can be 5 and 6 and remember things, 7 and 8 or remember things. It has nothing to do with attaining puberty. It has to do with reaching the age of cognition where you become aware, you're fully aware of your surroundings. Oh, that's my mom and dad. Oh, I'm Aisha, right? That's all it's saying. That as far as she could remember, when she reached the age where she could recall things, she doesn't remember a time where her parents were not Muslims. That's all it's saying. And that's confirmed by the very next hadith that follows up this one. The very next hadith in Muslim Khan's translation.
So in the same volume of Bukhari that Muslims go to show, in their attempt to show that Aisha had reached the age of puberty, you're telling us, Sam, that if they simply read the very next hadith, it would clarify this meaning and how it was mistranslated as having something to do with puberty? If they simply read the next one, and therefore that any Muslim who actually has read the passage knows that this is, let alone Muslims who can read in the Arabic and see that it has nothing. Like we actually had this on when Christian Prince was on here. He says, it's not saying anything about puberty here, right?
Yes.
But you're saying that if they simply went, even for those who don't speak Arabic, if they simply read the next hadith, they'd see what this is about?
Yeah, well, let me qualify. When I said read the narration that has Aisha recounting the past. Sorry about that. I misspoke, and forgive me for that. What I'm saying is, if you just read another narration by Muhammad Muslim Khan talking about Aisha recalling how long her parents were Muslims, because that's the context, right? That's the context. So again, let me just rephrase that again. Sorry about that. Sometimes I do misspeak, even though I'm the closest thing to infallibility. In fact, I was going to nominate myself the Protestant Pope, and you'd be my cardinal. Is that okay? No,
cool.
Put that aside. Just putting aside, guys. Don't get upset. Don't stone me. Just kidding. All right. If you just read from Muhammad Muslim Khan, who translates another narration about the same incident, how far back did Aisha recall her parents being Muslims? How far back? Here it is. This is number 494 in the Muhammad Muslim Khan translation. Narrated Aisha, the wife of the Prophet, since I reached the age when I could remember things, I have seen my parents worshiping according to the right faith of Islam. So that's the point. When you go to Bukhari and see what the context is, because this is narrated more than once, as even Muhammad Khan translates this in other narration, and the context is the same. Aisha, how long do you recall your parents being Muslims? That's the context, David. How long do you recall them? And she goes, from way back when I was young, when I could remember and be aware of my surroundings, I don't recall them being other than Muslim. What does this got to do with puberty, David? Help me understand.
Nothing. So, guys, do you all understand the point here? So notice, here you have Mo here, and we don't know if he's deliberately being deceptive or if he's just believing what his deceptive scholars have said, but he cut and pasted this from the Akin Institute article, and you can do the same thing. Type this in with that number 25 in brackets, because that's one of their footnotes. Narrated Aisha, I had seen my parents following Islam since I attained the age of reason, i.e. puberty. They make the age of reason puberty, like you start being able to reason at puberty. We know from other hadiths that say the same thing, and especially if you just read it in Arabic, or if you get a different translation, such as the translation of Aisha Bewley, this is simply the age of when you can remember. Right? This is the age of, if you think back, as Sam pointed out, you can't remember things when you were a baby. You can't remember things when you were 2. I think the earliest thing I remember breaking this arm, and I think I was about 3 years old. But you tend to only from the age of like 3 and 4, you tend to only remember something that really stands out in your mind, something traumatic. But so what Aisha is saying here, as far back as I can remember, my parents were following Islam.
Yep.
That's it.
That's right.
As far back as I can remember. So from the time I was able to form memories that last until now, my parents were Muslim. And that's all it's saying. And notice, Muslim websites and deceptive Muslim apologists have to twist this into a claim that she'd reached puberty by doing gymnastics on a passage that has nothing to do with her reaching puberty.
That's right.
Nothing at all.
Yeah. And emphasize the fact, David, that even Muhammad Muslim Khan, when there's another narration in the same collection of Bukhari, because I want people to get this, where you find the same narration in another section of Bukhari, where Aisha again is talking about how far back does she remember her parents being Muslims. There he gets it right. Number 494. Don't forget, for some reason in this other one, he decides to translate it as attained the age of puberty, number 465. But in number 494, same context, same point. Aisha, how long do you remember your parents being Muslims? Again, let me repeat. When I could remember things, from the age when I start remembering things. And don't forget the point that Aisha Bewley translates that same hadith that Muhammad Muslim Khan said, age of puberty. And notice how Bewley translated, because Arabic has nothing to do with puberty. Here it is from Aisha Bewley. Number 464, it is related that Aisha, the wife of the Prophet, said, I have no recollection of my parents doing anything but following the deen of Islam. Where do you find puberty? It has nothing to do with it. So I just want that to sink in. This is another desperate attempt of trying to excuse the behavior of Muhammad. But understand the implication of this, David. They see that it's morally evil.
Yep, they know it.
It is immoral for a grown man, 54-year-old man, to have sex with a prepubescent, premature minor. And yet, so for some reason they think, let's argue, for argument's sake, let me just go with it, that at 9, she did attain puberty. And that's going to justify that a 54-year-old man, old enough to be her great-grandfather, to sleep with her and take her to his bed as his wife, even if for some strange reason we assume she was pubescent. That doesn't mean that psychologically or even physiologically she'd be able to be intimate with a grown man. So that shows how sick this mind is, to seek a justification for what a 54-year-old man did to a 9-year-old playing with dolls and on swings.
Yeah, and just so everyone knows that they shouldn't be toying around with Bukhari and trying to twist things into saying that Aisha had reached puberty, let me go ahead and put this up on the screen.
And as you do that, we have another troll, Nadim Ahmed, saying that Mary was 12 years old when Joseph married her. See?
Okay, well, we can deal with that. Guys, we're going live today and tomorrow, so if we need to push some of this off and and address the topic of Muhammad and Aisha over and over again, Sam, we're trying to talk about some theological stuff here, and Muslims just want to keep talking about Aisha all day.
Yeah, they don't
it's
mind.
Amazing.
You want us to shame Muhammad and expose him what a pervert he is?
Yeah, and
sleeping with a minor? Up to you.
And on top of that, show how they lie in response, and that their responses are based on lies. That that they'll tell everyone, oh, we respect Mary and Jesus and the prophets, and then they'll turn right around and lie about them in order to defend their own fake prophet. This is hilarious. All right, but everyone, so this is the same translation of Sahih al-Bukhari that Muslims use to show that Aisha had reached puberty. So this is number 5133, but let's go up to the chapter heading here. Chapter heading, giving one's young children in marriage is permissible. One's young children, not just children, young children. Giving one's young children in marriage is permissible. Why? By virtue of the statement of Allah, and for those who have no monthly courses, i.e. they are still immature, so that's Surah 65, verse 4, that's the Quran. And it quotes it, and the iddah for the girl before puberty is 3 months in the above verse. The iddah for the girl when? Before puberty. Before puberty. Before 100%. Puberty. It's giving the rules for divorcing a girl that you've married and had sex with all before the age of puberty. And then, as an example of this, he connects it to number 5133, narrated Aisha that the Prophet wrote the marriage contract with her when she was 6 years old, and he consummated his marriage when she was 9 years old, and then she remained with him for 9 years, i.e. till his death. Now, think about this. Muslim apologists go to a hadith that has absolutely, indisputably nothing to do with puberty. Right? It's Aisha saying, as long as I can remember my parents were always Muslims. We know that because we have alternative translations and because we have other hadiths saying the exact same thing. They're relating the same account. Muslims talk about this and they say when Aisha says, as far back as I can remember, she's talking about the age of reason. Oh, but the age of reason, we're going to say that means puberty. Therefore, she'd reached puberty. This is what they have to do. This is what they have to do in order to justify their prophet. We're not done. Let me go ahead and pull up something else from Bukhari right here. Number 6130, narrated Aisha, I used to play with the dolls in the presence of the Prophet. That's strange because I thought that such images were forbidden and that girls weren't allowed to play with dolls in Islam because they're images. I used to play with the dolls in the presence of the Prophet, and my girlfriends also used to play with me. When Allah's messenger used to enter my dwelling place, they used to hide themselves, but the Prophet would call them to join and play with me. The playing with the dolls and similar images is forbidden, but it was allowed for Aisha at that time, as she was a little girl, not yet reached the age of puberty. So here we have over and over again. And by the way, if someone wants to say, no, that's talking about before Muhammad consummated the marriage with her. No, let's go ahead and read Sahih Muslim. It was narrated from Aisha that the Prophet married her when she was 7 years old, and she was taken to him as a bride when she was 9 years old, and she took her dolls with her. He died when she was 18 years old. So when she was taken to Muhammad's house to consummate the marriage, she says that her dolls were with her. Now, ladies and gentlemen, keep in mind, why is she talking about her dolls being with her? I mean, I'm sure she took other things. I'm sure she took her clothes and things like that. Why is she talking about bringing her dolls with her? That's just Arabic slang for saying, and by the way, I hadn't reached puberty. I was still allowed to play with dolls at the time, so I hadn't reached puberty. That's how they would describe it. That's how they would say that they had not reached puberty yet. I still had my dolls. So you have over and over again in Bukhari saying that Aisha had not reached puberty when Muhammad had sex with her. You have in the Quran itself, Allah is saying that you can marry a girl, have sex with her, divorce her, all before she's reached puberty. And to respond to this, Muslims will go to a hadith that doesn't have anything at all to do with Aisha reaching puberty. They'll twist it into meaning that. They'll ignore everything else and they'll say, you see here, your accusations are unfounded. Why? Because the Muslim apologists know that this is something that really bothers Muslims. Muslims find this behavior absolutely repulsive, and they know people will leave Islam if they find out about Muhammad, the truth about Muhammad. And so they are deliberately deceiving and distorting. What kind of religion needs to rely on deception in order to prop it up? Islam. All right. What do we want to do, Sam?
This gentleman, again, Nadim, he's lying through his teeth.
Hang on, let me see if I can find him.
Yeah, if you find it, I just want to say this man is, again, he's on the level of Osama Abdullah or Nadir Ahmed.
Yeah, that's probably where he's copying his stuff from.
Yeah, because he's lying through his teeth. He said earlier that's why the Monophysite Christians, the Miaphysites, are on the side of Muslims over against the Diaphysites. For those of you who don't understand what that means, there are Christians like the Coptic Church that believe that Christ's humanity was engulfed by his deity in such a way that his humanity has become divinized, so that they find it more appropriate to speak of Christ having one nature. That's in opposition to the view that most Christians hold, theophysitism, meaning that there are two natures in Christ. Now, because he's lying and he's following the example of his prophet, whose father was the father of lies and a murderer, because Muhammad was the son of Satan, it is not true that the Miaphysites are on the side of the Muslims, in that the Miaphysites are Trinitarians. They believe the one God is the Father, his eternal Son, his Word that became flesh and eternal Spirit, and they believe that Jesus is truly God, and they still affirm that he has a physical body in heaven. They don't deny that. So why would this wicked agent of the devil try to pit these Trinitarians against other Trinitarians, where their disagreement has to do with whether the human nature of Christ has been divinized, what they call theosis, and therefore it's more appropriate to speak of Christ having one nature, because at the end of the day, believe it or not, we're both saying the same thing. And I'm not trying to make light of the differences and the schisms, but at the end of the day, if you ask a Coptic Christian, is Jesus still a man with a physical body that's immortalized? They'll say yes. They have to believe in the humanity of Christ, because they believe in the Eucharist, the body and the blood becomes the body, in the Eucharist, the bread and the wine becomes the body and blood of Christ. And yet this guy's such a wicked tool of the devil. He thinks he's going to get the Miaphysites, right, on his side in order to pit them against the Diophysites. But only someone who's inspired by the same devil that influenced Muhammad could be this low. And then to have the audacity to say Joseph was 90 years old when he married the Blessed Mother of the Lord at the age of 12. So I want to call him out. If he brought up the statement, I want this fraud who makes Muhammad look credible and honest, quote the source, give me the date of the source, give me the date of the reference, give me the document that mentions that Joseph was 9 years old when Mary was betrothed to him at the age of 12. The reason why I say that, there are no authentic sources. There are no documents from the first century, from the eyewitnesses or the followers of the eyewitnesses that say that Joseph was 90. But even if we agree he's 90, this guy either is so demonized that he forgets Joseph didn't touch Mary. Mary conceived and gave birth to Jesus while a virgin. And if you're going to quote church history, then quote it in context by the time this source that you're alluding to. And this is what's ironic, David. The source he's alluding to, where Joseph is 90, was produced by people who believed that Mary remained a perpetual virgin, so that what Joseph did wasn't marry her, but took her into his house to be her guardian. That's why they posted his age at 90. Let me explain to you why 90. Because they're trying to show that Joseph was too old to marry her, so that when he took her in as a daughter, and he was a father figure to her. You moron. Anyway, go ahead, David.
All right, well, we have a response from Mo here. Sam, this is a problem. So